My dog turned on me, and he saved my life, Emma Claire Thornton whispered under Willow Hollow's starlit oaks. In a South Carolina town where gospel hymns drift over cornbread suppers and creek waters sing, a deputy sheriff faced a shattering truth. Emma, haunted by her father's death, found a guide in Tucker, her K9, whose loyalty exposed a chilling conspiracy, Project Sentinel, a plot twisting her own memories. From festival chaos to mill ambushes, Emma's courage, Tucker's trust, and a stray named Lily forged a path to justice, uniting a community under lantern light. Can one woman and her dog unravel a town's darkest secrets and heal its heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you trust a dog's warning? Subscribe for stories that stir the soul, and join us now in Willow Hollow, where truth echoes through sycamore shade, calling us home under a moonlit sky.
The Dog Stories 4.0.
Tucker's trying to kill me, Nora, and I don't know why. Emma Claire Thornton hissed into her phone, her voice trembling like the moss-draped oaks swaying in the August breeze of Willow Hollow, South Carolina, in 2024. The late summer sun bathed the town in a golden glow, its clapboard churches and cotton fields shimmering under a sky soft as a gospel hymn. The Willow Hollow Church Festival buzzed with life, gospel choirs soaring, cornbread stalls steaming, kids darting through oak shade with peach-stained grins. But near the courthouse steps, where the festival spilled onto red clay paths, chaos had erupted. Emma, 34, a deputy sheriff newly returned to her hometown, stood frozen, her gray-green eyes wide, her auburn ponytail slipping from under her sheriff's cap. Her crisp khaki uniform, badge glinting, was dusted with clay, and her silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James, swung wildly as she gripped the leash of Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9. Tucker, always disciplined, had just lunged at her, his black antennae coat bristling, his amber eyes blazing, his teeth bared in a growl that shattered the festival's calm. Emma's athletic frame, honed by years of training in Atlanta, trembled as she yanked Tucker's leather harness, his badge tag jingling. The dog's notched ear twitched, his tail low, his growl a siren cutting through the choirs sweep by and by. Townsfolk gasped, their cornbread forgotten, as Emma stumbled, knocking over a table of peach preserves, jars shattering in a sticky cascade. "Tucker, heel," she commanded, her voice steady despite her racing heart, but Tucker's eyes locked on her badge, his nose flaring, as if she were the threat. Children froze, vendors gaped, and old-timers at the lemonade stand whispered, their eyes narrowing. Emma, Willow Hollow's prodigal daughter, felt the weight of their stares, an echo of the doubts she'd fled a decade ago after her father's death and her mother's grief drove her to the city. She'd returned to rebuild her life post-divorce, hoping Willow Hollow's oaks and hymns would heal her. Patrolling the festival was routine, a chance to reconnect with the town she'd loved as a child, where James, the sheriff, had taught her to fish by the creek. But Tucker's lunge, raw and relentless, was no glitch. He'd never faltered, not in Atlanta's raids or Willow Hollow's quiet nights. Emma's calloused hand, scarred from a childhood full, tightened on the leash, her boots scuffing clay as she crouched, meeting Tucker's gaze. "What's wrong? Boy," she whispered, her voice cracking, but Tucker's growl softened only slightly, his amber eyes unwavering, a warning she couldn't decode. Nora Faye Thornton, Emma's sister, a librarian in Charleston, answered through the phone, her voice calm but urgent. "Emma, Tucker's not himself. Get him checked. Could be stress." Emma nodded, her gray-green eyes scanning the crowd, catching the whispers. What's she hiding? James's girl, trouble already? Their words like thorns. She'd left Willow Hollow at 24, escaping the shadow of James's heart attack and her mother's fading light, only to return with scars of her own. The festival's joy, banjos strumming, kids laughing, felt distant. the Oaks shade cold. Captain Amos Wade, her boss, pushed through the crowd, his stocky frame looming, his dark brown eyes cold under a polished sheriff's cap. "Thornton, take the afternoon off," he said, his drawl clipped, his gold watch glinting. "Get that dog evaluated. We can't have this." His tone, sharp as a blade, hinted at doubt, and Emma's stomach twisted, sensing more than professional concern. She led Tucker to her cruiser, his paws steady now, his growl gone, but his amber eyes still fixed on her badge, as if it held a secret. The festival resumed, hymns rising, but the whispers lingered, snaking through cornbread stalls and church pews. Emma drove to her small clapboard house at the town's edge, the creek murmuring nearby, its waters catching the sun. On the porch, she sank to the steps, Tucker lying beside her, his notched ear twitching, his tail thumping once, soft but sure. She ran her fingers through his glossy coat, the cross necklace cool against her skin. "What's got you spooked, boy?" she murmured, her voice low, the memory of his lunge a weight she couldn't shake. Recent oddities, dropped calls on patrol, a locked file at the station, flickered in her mind, but she pushed them aside, unwilling to see the storm brewing. Martha Tate, the diner owner and her mother's old friend, arrived with a basket of cornbread, her gray hair braided under a sun hat, her brown eyes kind but searching. "Heard 'bout Tucker, Emma," she said, her low-country drawl warm, setting the basket down. "He's a good dog, but folkery talkin'. Reminds me of your daddy, always diggin' where he shouldn't." Martha's words, meant as comfort, stirred unease, conjuring James's memory, his sheriff's badge, his late-night case files, his sudden death. Emma forced a smile, showing Martha Tucker's calm now, but her gray-green eyes betrayed her worry. "Just a bad day," she said, but Martha's gaze lingered, as if sensing the truth Emma couldn't yet see. Nora called again, her voice crackling. "Emma, Tucker's trying to tell you something. Don't ignore him." Emma's fingers brushed her badge, Tucker's eyes flicking to it, a low whine escaping. She opened her duty bag, finding a folded note slipped inside, "You don't know who you are." Her pulse surged, the words a chill down her spine, the festival's hymns fading in her memory. She'd returned to Willow Hollow for peace, but Tucker's lunge, the note, the town's whispers, they were a reckoning, pulling her into a mystery tied to her father's shadow. The climax roared as Emma stood, the porch creaking, the creak's murmur a call to action. She clutched the note, her gray-green eyes burning, her cap pushed back, the cross necklace glinting. "All right, Tucker," she said, her voice firm, tears pricking her eyes. "Show me what you know." Tucker rose, his muscular frame steady, his notched ear lifting, his amber eyes a beacon in the dusk. He padded to the cruiser, glancing back, his tail wagging slow but certain, a signal of trust. Emma followed, the note in her pocket, the badge heavy on her chest, the mill waiting. The church bells tolled a hymn of hope, and the oaks whispered, their moss swaying, promising a truth that would shake Willow Hollow to its core. The late August dusk draped Willow Hollow, South Carolina, in a golden veil, the moss-draped oaks casting long shadows across the red clay paths, their leaves whispering secrets in the cooling breeze. The creek murmured beyond the cotton fields, its waters catching the last glints of sunlight, while the distant chime of church bells wove a gospel hymn through the air, soft as cornbread crumbling on a low-country supper table. Emma Claire Thornton sat on the porch of her small clapboard house at the town's edge, her auburn ponytail loose under a sheriff's cap, her gray-green eyes tracing the horizon where the festival's echoes lingered. Her khaki uniform, badge still pinned, clung to her athletic frame, dusted with clay from the church festival where Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, had lunged at her, his black and tan coat bristling, his amber eyes blazing, shattering the town's trust. The silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James rested cool against her skin, a tether to the faith she'd lost when she fled Willow Hollow a decade ago, chasing a life in Atlanta to escape his shadow and her mother's grief. Emma's calloused hands, scarred from a childhood fall, gripped the folded note she'd found in her duty bag. "You don't know who you are." The words, scrawled in sharp ink, burned in her mind, a riddle tied to Tucker's lunge, his growl a warning she couldn't unhear. Her heart, already bruised by divorce and the weight of returning home at 34, thudded with a mix of fear and resolve. The festival's chaos, peach preserves shattering, townsfolk whispering, Captain Amos Wade's cold order to rest, had left her raw, the memory of Willow Hollow's eyes on her like a mirror reflecting the girl who'd run from James's death, never looking back. Tucker lay beside her, his notched ear still, his glossy coat warm under her touch, his amber eyes soft now, but flickering to her badge, as if it held a truth she wasn't ready to face. The porch creaked under her boots. The creak sung a lullaby she didn't trust, and Emma felt the town's heartbeat shift, its warmth turning sharp, like a hymn gone sour. Willow Hollow had welcomed her return with cornbread and smiles, seeing in her the echo of James Earl Thornton, the sheriff whose integrity had defined the town until his heart attack a decade ago. But Tucker's lunge had cracked that image, whispers snaking through the diner, the market, the church pews. Emma's hiding something. Like father, like daughter, trouble follows. Each word was a thorn, piercing the fragile hope she'd nursed since leaving Atlanta, where her marriage crumbled under the weight of long shifts and unspoken dreams. She'd come back to heal, to walk the paths where James taught her to fish, to feel her mother's laughter in the oak's rustle. But now, sitting under the porch's sagging roof, she felt like a stranger in her own skin, the notes warning a shadow she couldn't outrun. Emma's phone buzzed, Nora Faye's name lighting the screen. Her sister, a librarian in Charleston, had urged her to trust Tucker's instincts after the festival. "Emma, he's not just a dog," Nora said, her voice crackling, soft but firm. "He's trying to protect you. Dig deeper." Emma's throat tightened, her gray-green eyes glistening as she glanced at Tucker, his tail thumping once, a quiet vow. Nora's words stirred memories of James, his late-night case files, his whispered warnings about big players in Willow Hollow, his sudden death that felt too neat. Emma had buried those thoughts, blaming her teenage rebellion for their rift. But Tucker's lunge, the note, Nora's call, they were pulling her back to a past she tried to forget. The town's whispers grew louder by noon, filtering through the diner where Martha Tate served coffee, her gray braids swinging as she deflected questions about Emma. At the market, vendors eyed her cruiser warily, their smiles tight. Even Deputy Lucas Grant, her colleague, kept his distance at the station, his brown eyes cautious, his wedding band glinting as he mumbled about paperwork. Captain Wade's office loomed heavy, his stocky frame filling the doorway, his dark brown eyes cold under his sheriff's cap. "Take a week, Thornton," he said, his drawl sharp, his gold watch ticking like a countdown. "Get Tucker sorted. We don't need trouble." Emma nodded, her badge heavy, but his tone, more threat than concern, echoed the note's words, twisting her fear into defiance. Alone on the porch, Emma's fingers traced the cross necklace, its silver cool against her racing pulse. Recent oddities, a dropped call on patrol, static on her radio, a locked file labeled Thornton at the station, swirled in her mind, each a puzzle piece she couldn't place. She opened her laptop, starting an anonymous blog, Low Country Echo, to process the festival, her words raw. Tucker's warning was real. What's Willow Hollow hiding? She hesitated, then posted, her heart pounding, the creeks murmur a distant comfort. Within hours, a comment appeared, cryptic and chilling. Check the Riverside Mill. Her breath caught, the words a hook, pulling her toward a truth she both craved and feared. Emma's fear mingled with a fire kindled by James's memory, his sheriff's badge, his quiet resolve, his belief in justice. She'd run from Willow Hollow to escape his shadow, but Tucker's lunge was a call to step into it, to face the town's doubts and her own. She clipped Tucker's leash, his harness jingling, his amber eyes bright with purpose. The mill, a crumbling relic by the creek, was where James had patrolled, where whispers of deals had once stirred. Emma's boots crunched gravel as she drove there at dusk, the oak's moss swaying, the church bells silent now, the air thick with honeysuckle and tension. Tucker sat alert, his notched ear twitching, his tail low, sensing what she couldn't. At the mill, its wooden frame sagging, the wheel creaking in the current, Emma's flashlight swept the shadows. Tucker sniffed intently, his nose leading to a rusted gear where a USB drive lay, taped tight. A figure emerged, Benji Cole, a nervous tech from the station, his eyes darting, sweat beading despite the cool night. "Emma, you weren't supposed to find this," he stammered, his voice cracking. "It's about your dad, about Sentinel." Before he could finish, a gunshot split the air, Benji's body jerking, blood blooming on his shirt. Emma dove behind a beam, Tucker barking furiously, his teeth bared, scanning the darkness. Another shot sparked inches from her head, and Emma's heart roared, her hands shaking as she scooped the USB, pulling Tucker toward cover. "Go, boy," she gasped, sprinting through the mill's ruins, shots echoing, the creek's song drowned by her pulse. They reached the cruiser, Emma's breath ragged, Tucker's amber eyes fierce, but steady, his harness glinting under moonlight. She clutched the USB, her gray-green eyes burning, the note's words, "You don't know who you are," a scream in her mind. Benji's death, the shots, the USB, they were tied to James, to Willow Hollow, to her. The town's whispers, Wade's pressure, the festival's stares, they weren't just doubt. They were a warning, a truth she'd been blind to. Her fear, sharp as a blade, melted into a resolve forged in James's memory, in Tucker's trust, in the cross necklace's weight against her heart. The climax surged as Emma stood by the creek, the mill's ruins fading, the sycamores swaying under a starlit sky. She clutched the USB, her badge heavy, her cap pushed back, tears tracing her cheeks. Tucker sat beside her, his notched ear lifting, his tail thumping a quiet rhythm, his amber eyes a vow to protect. Emma's heart pounded, not with panic, but with a truth breaking free, that James's legacy, Tucker's warning, and Willow Hollow's secrets were hers to unravel. She opened Low Country Echo, her fingers trembling, typing, "Benji's dead. The mill holds answers. Who's hiding the truth?" The post went live, her resolve afire, the creek's murmur a hymn of courage. The church bells tolled, the oaks whispered, and Emma knew this was only the beginning, and Tucker would lead her through the dark. September's golden haze settled over Willow Hollow, South Carolina. In 2024, the Low Country's moss-draped oaks swaying gently, their shadows stretching across the red clay paths like whispered secrets. The creek murmured through the cotton fields, its waters glinting under a sky soft as a gospel hymn, while the faint chime of church bells carried sweet by and by from the clapboard chapel, a melody woven into the town's heartbeat. Emma Claire Thornton sat at a weathered table in the Riverside Cafe, her auburn ponytail loose beneath a sheriff's cap, her gray-green eyes haunted by the weight of the USB drive clutched in her calloused hand. Her khaki uniform, badge pinned crooked from the chaos at the Riverside Mill, clung to her athletic frame, dusted with clay and sweat. The silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James Earl Thornton, rested heavy against her chest, a tether to the faith she lost when she fled Willow Hollow a decade ago, chasing a life in Atlanta to escape his unsolved death and her mother's fading light. Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, lay at her feet, his black and tan coat glossy, his notched ear still, his amber eyes fixed on her, a quiet sentinel after their escape from the mill where Benji Cole's blood still stained the dirt. Emma's heart, bruised by divorce, and the festival incident where Tucker lunged at her, thudded with a cocktail of fear, betrayal, and resolve. The Mills horror, Benji's death, gunshots sparking, the USB's cold metal in her palm had cracked open a truth she couldn't unsee. The note from part 1, "You don't know who you are," burned in her memory, its words a riddle tied to Tucker's warning, to her father's shadow, to Willow Hollow's whispers. Her blog, Low Country Echo, posted in a haze of defiance, had sparked a cryptic comment, "Check the Riverside Mill," leading to Benji's revelation of Sentinel and his murder. Emma's fingers, scarred from a childhood fall, trembled as she plugged the USB into her laptop, her gray-green eyes darting to the cafe's windows where the creek's reflection danced. The town's trust, fragile since the festival, felt like a rope fraying, each whisper Emma's trouble, like James a cut deeper than the last. The cafe hummed with morning life, farmers sipping coffee, waitresses balancing cornbread platters, the scent of honeysuckle drifting through open doors. But Emma felt like a ghost, her isolation a weight heavier than her badge. She'd returned to Willow Hollow at 34, hoping its oaks and hymns would mend her broken marriage's scars, but Tucker's lunge, Captain Amos Wade's cold orders, and now Benji's death had turned her homecoming into a nightmare. Her fear, sharp as the mill's gunshots, mingled with the fire kindled by James's memory, his sheriff's badge, his late-night case files, his warnings about big players in town. She'd buried those thoughts, blaming her teenage rebellion for their rift, but the USB was a call to face them, to unravel a truth that threatened to swallow her whole. The laptop screen flickered, the USB's files loading videos, documents, timestamps. Emma's breath caught as she clicked the first video, grainy footage from a mill fire 6 months ago, a blaze she'd patrolled but never entered. There she was, moving through smoke, clutching a metal case, her badge glinting, but her memory held no trace of that night. Another clip showed her in the station's evidence room at 2:14 a.m., pocketing a file, her face blank, her actions foreign. Her stomach twisted, a cold sweat prickling her skin, her gray-green eyes wide with betrayal, not of others, but of herself. Who am I? The question echoed the note, her hands shaking as she paused the video, Tucker's whine pulling her back, his amber eyes steady, his notched ear twitching as if sensing her unraveling. Emma's mind raced, piecing together Benji's words, "It's about your dad," about Sentinel with the videos. Sentinel, a name whispered in fear, felt like a shadow from James's case files, a conspiracy he'd chased before his heart attack a decade ago. Her fear morphed into a raw ache, guilt for fleeing Willow Hollow, for missing James's funeral, for leaving her mother to fade alone. Tucker nudged her knee, his harness jingling, his tail thumping once, a quiet vow that anchored her. She typed on Low Country Echo, her words spilling, "Benji's gone. Sentinel's real. What did my father know?" She hesitated, her pulse hammering, then posted, the cafe's hum fading, the creek's song a distant comfort. The town's whispers grew sharper, filtering through the diner where Martha Tate deflected gossip, her cornbread cooling untouched. At the station, Lucas Grant's cautious glances stung, his brown eyes avoiding hers, his wedding band glinting as he shuffled reports. Wade's office loomed, his stocky frame filling the doorway, his dark brown eyes cold, his gold watch ticking. "Stay off duty, Thornton," he said, his drawl a blade. "Tucker's unstable. Don't make this worse." Emma nodded, her badge heavy, but his tone, more threat than advice, fueled her defiance, echoing the mill's gunshots, the note's warning, Benji's blood. That night, Emma's porch creaked under her boots, the creak's murmur a restless hymn. Tucker sat alert, his amber eyes scanning the street, his notched ear twitching at a rustle. A shadow moved behind an oak, and Tucker growled, low and fierce, his tail stiff. Emma's hand flew to her sidearm, her heart racing, the cross necklace cold against her skin. A text buzzed, "Last warning." Her fear spiked, but her resolve burned brighter. James's memory, his steady voice, his belief in justice, a fire in her chest. She needed answers, someone who knew Willow Hollow's secrets, someone like Calvin Holt, a retired deputy turned private investigator, living off-grid in Georgetown. He'd worked with James, shared his distrust of big players, and might decode the USB's truth. Emma drove to the creek's edge, Tucker in the passenger seat, his harness glinting, his amber eyes fierce. The cafe's safety felt false, the town's whispers a cage. She stopped at a riverside shack, its tin roof sagging, to check her phone, the blog's comments flooding. "We trust you, Emma." James was right. The support, faint but real, stirred hope, but a hooded figure emerged from the shadows, lunging with a syringe, its needle glinting. Emma's training kicked and she dodged, her boot slamming the figure's wrist, but Tucker surged, his teeth sinking into the attacker's arm, sending the syringe skittering. The figure screamed, collapsing, his eyes glazing over, dead in seconds, a mystery as chilling as Benji's fate. Emma's breath ragged, she grabbed the syringe, its clear liquid shimmering, Tucker's growl a shield against the night. Her heart pounded, fear and betrayal swirling. Someone wanted her silenced. Someone who knew Sentinel, who knew James. Tucker's amber eyes met hers, his tail thumping, his notched ear lifting, a vow to protect. Emma's resolve hardened, her gray-green eyes burning, the cross necklace a reminder of James's faith. She posted again on Low Country Echo, "They're coming for me. Sentinel's bigger than Willow Hollow." The creek song rose, the oaks whispered, and Emma knew she couldn't trust Wade, Lucas, or even her own memories. Calvin was her only hope, his cabin a beacon in the dark. The climax roared as Emma stood by the cruiser, the syringe in her pocket, the USB a weight in her hand, the sycamores swaying under a moonlit sky. She clutched her badge, her cap pushed back, tears tracing her cheeks, her heart a storm of fear, guilt, and defiance. Tucker sat beside her, his black and tan coat glowing, his amber eyes steady, his tail a quiet rhythm of trust. Emma's pulse surged, not with panic but with a truth breaking free, that James's legacy, Tucker's warning, and Willow Hollow's secrets were hers to face. She started the engine, her hands steady, her gray-green eyes fixed on the road to Georgetown. The church bells tolled a hymn of courage, and the oak's moss danced, promising a truth that would echo through the hollow, with Tucker leading the way. October's amber glow bathed Willow Hollow, South Carolina. In 2024, the Low Country's moss-draped oaks casting intricate shadows across the red clay paths, their leaves drifting like embers in the crisp breeze. The creek murmured through the cotton fields, its waters shimmering under a sky streaked with clouds, soft as the gospel hymns rising from the clapboard church, where "How Great Thou Art" echoed like a prayer. Emma Claire Thornton stood in the attic of her small clapboard house, her auburn ponytail loose beneath a faded sheriff's cap, her gray-green eyes tracing the dust motes dancing in slanted light. Her khaki uniform, badge unpinned since Captain Amos Wade's orders to stay off duty, hung loose on her athletic frame, replaced by a flannel shirt and jeans dusted with clay. The silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James Earl Thornton, rested heavy against her chest, its weight a reminder of the faith she lost when she fled Willow Hollow a decade ago, escaping his unsolved death and her mother's fading warmth. Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, lay at her feet, his black and tan coat glossy, his notched ear still, his amber eyes fixed on her, a steadfast guardian after their harrowing escape from the Riverside Mill and the attack at the shack. Emma's heart, scarred by divorce and the festival incident where Tucker lunged at her, thudded with a storm of grief, betrayal, and hope. The USB drive from Benji Cole, stained with his blood, had revealed a chilling truth. Project Sentinel, a government conspiracy using deputies like her as unwitting test subjects for behavioral control, with chemicals and subliminal cues. Videos showed her in places she couldn't recall: the mill fire, the station's evidence room, her actions foreign, her badge a lie. Tucker's lunge, his growl at her badge, was no betrayal but a warning, his K9 training detecting the chemicals in her system. The attack at the shack, a syringe gleaming with unknown poison, had cemented the danger, the hooded figure's death a mystery as deep as Benji's. Emma's calloused hands, marked by a childhood fall, clutched a photo of James, his sheriff's badge glinting, his brown eyes kind but fierce, a man who'd chased Sentinel's shadow before his heart attack claimed him. Her blog, Low Country Echo, had sparked hope with comments, "We trust you, Emma." But the town's whispers, Wade's threats, and the note's riddle, "You don't know who you are," weighed like a chain, pulling her into a past she tried to bury. Emma's attic was a shrine to James, old case files, fishing lures, a worn Bible, each item a pang of grief for the father she'd lost at 24, her teenage rebellion a wall between them. She'd fled to Atlanta, hoping city lights would drown her guilt, but her divorce had sent her back to Willow Hollow at 34, seeking the oak's shade and her mother's laughter in the creek song. Now, the USB's revelations had torn that hope apart, her fear of betrayal, not just by Wade, but by her own manipulated mind, clashing with a resolve kindled by James's memory. Tucker's amber eyes, steady despite the mill's gunshots, anchored her, his tail thumping once, a quiet vow that she wasn't alone. Nora Faye Thornton, her sister, had called from Charleston, her voice a lifeline. "Emma, Dad's fight is yours. Follow Tucker." Emma's gray-green eyes glistened, her fingers tracing the cross necklace, Nora's words stirring a hope fragile as a hymn. The USB's files mentioned a courthouse archive tied to James, a clue Emma couldn't ignore. She drove to the historic courthouse, its stone steps worn by time, Tucker in the passenger seat, his harness jingling, his notched ear twitching. The town hummed, farmers at the market, kids with peach-stained grins, but whispers followed her. Emma's trouble, like Jane's. Tucker's dangerous. Each word was a knife, slicing the trust she'd hoped to rebuild. At the station, Lucas Grant's cautious glances stung, his brown eyes avoiding hers, his wedding band glinting as he muttered about patrols. Wade's office loomed, his cold drawl echoing, "Stay off duty, Thornton." Emma's badge, left at home, felt like a wound, her fear of losing Willow Hollow's faith warring with her need to honor Jane's. The courthouse archive, a dusty basement of oak shelves, smelled of mildew and secrets. Tucker sniffed intently, his nose leading to a locked drawer labeled Thornton J. Emma's pulse raced, her flashlight sweeping the shadows, her hands prying the drawer open. Inside lay a file box, its lid carved with a sycamore leaf, containing James's notes, scribbled warnings about Sentinel, names redacted, a photo of James with Wade, their faces tense, and a letter. "Protect Willow Hollow, Emma. The truth is bigger than us." Her breath caught, tears spilling down her cheeks, the letter trembling in her grip. She saw James's hands writing, heard his voice urging justice, felt the weight of his death, not a heart attack, but a silencing. Tucker whined, nudging her knee, his amber eyes soft, his tail thumping, as if saying, "He's still here." The archive's silence hummed, the creek's distant song a hymn, and Emma's grief for James, her missed chances, her flight from home, melted into a resolve to finish his fight. Nora arrived the next day, her blonde braid swinging, her blue eyes bright under a cardigan, her pearl locket glinting with their parents' photo. "Emma, Dad knew you'd come back," she said, hugging her, her voice trembling. "Share this. Willow Hollow needs to know." They sat on the porch, Tucker dozing by the file box, as Nora read the letter, her tears falling. "It's his legacy, Emma. Don't let it die." Emma's fear of Wade, of Sentinel, of her own fractured memories clashed with the hope kindled by Nora's faith, by the blog's growing support. Martha Tate, the diner owner, organized a church supper, her gray braid tucked under a sun hat, her brown eyes warm. Locals gathered, farmers with cornbread, church ladies with pecan pie, sharing stories of James's integrity, fixing fences, saving kids from the creek. Their laughter softened the whispers, their trust a fragile bridge, and Emma's heart swelled, her gray-green eyes glistening, the cross necklace a vow to protect them. Emma posted on Lowcountry Echo about the archive, her words raw. Dad died for the truth. Sentinels here. Who's with me? Comments flooded. James was a hero. We're behind you, Emma. But one stood out. Check the mill's basement. Her pulse quickened. The mill, a place of death and secrets, now calling again. The supper's warmth lingered, but fear gnawed Wade's cold eyes, the syringe's shimmer, the video's betrayal. Emma's resolve hardened, her need to honor James, to trust Tucker, to save Willow Hollow burning brighter than her doubt. That night, Emma and Tucker returned to the mill, its wool creaking, the oak's moss swaying under moonlight. Tucker sniffed the basement stairs, his amber eyes bright, his notched ear lifting. Emma's flashlight swept the damp stone, her heart racing, her hands trembling as Tucker pawed at a crate, revealing a second USB taped inside, its files listing Sentinels, targets, Emma, Wade, others. A shadow moved, and gunfire erupted, bullets sparking against stone. Tucker lunged, his growl a shield, pinning an attacker as Emma fired, her training steady despite her fear. The figure fled, leaving a dropped syringe, its liquid glinting. Emma grabbed the USB, her breath ragged, Tucker's amber eyes fierce, his tail thumping, a vow unbroken. The climax surged as Emma stood by the creek, the mill's ruins fading, the sycamores swaying under a starlit sky. She clutched the USBs, her badge absent, her cap pushed back, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart a storm of grief, betrayal, and hope. Tucker sat beside her, his black and tan coat glowing, his amber eyes steady, his tail a quiet rhythm of trust. Emma's pulse roared, not with fear, but with a truth breaking free, that James's legacy, Tucker's guidance, and Willow Hollow's faith were hers to carry. She typed on Lowcountry Echo, Sentinel's list is real. I'm not stopping. The post went live, her resolve a beacon, the creek sung a hymn of justice. The church bells tolled, the oaks whispered, and Emma knew Wade was next, and Tucker would lead her through the fire. November's crisp dawn broke over Willow Hollow, South Carolina. In 2024, the Lowcountry's moss-draped oaks standing sentinel, their leaves a fiery cascade against the red clay paths, trembling in the chill breeze. The creek murmured through the cotton fields, its waters catching the first light like a whispered hymn, while the clabbered church's bells tolled amazing grace, their echo weaving through the town's quiet heartbeat. Emma Claire Thornton stood on the porch of her clabbered house, her auburn hair loose beneath a faded sheriff's cap, her gray-green eyes burning with a storm of grief, betrayal, and hope. Her flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up despite the cold, hung over jeans dusted with clay, her khaki uniform and badge abandoned since Captain Amos Wade's orders to stay off duty. The silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James Earl Thornton, rested heavy against her chest, its weight a tether to the faith she'd lost when she fled Willow Hollow a decade ago, escaping his silenced legacy and her mother's fading warmth. Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, sat beside her, his black and tan coat glossy, his notched ear still, his amber eyes steady, a steadfast guardian after their perilous discoveries at the courthouse archive and the mill's basement. Emma's heart, scarred by divorce and the festival incident where Tucker lunged at her, pounded with a raw ache, the USB drives, one from Benji Cole's bloodied hand, another from the mill's ambush, weighing like stones in her pocket. They revealed Project Sentinel, a government conspiracy manipulating deputies like her with chemicals and subliminal cues, her unremembered actions, mill fires, evidence room thefts, a betrayal of her own mind. James's file box, hidden in the courthouse archive, had unveiled his fight against Sentinel, his notes, photo with Wade, and letter, "Protect Willow Hollow, Emma, a call she couldn't ignore." The mill ambush, bullets sparking, had cemented the danger. Tucker's growl her shield. Her blog, Low Country Echo, had sparked a shift. Its comments, James was a hero. Kindling hope, but Wade's cold orders, the town's lingering whispers, and the note's riddle, "You don't know who you are," were a noose tightening around her resolve. Emma's attic, a shrine to James's case files and fishing lures, had become her refuge, each item a pang of grief for the father she'd lost at 24, her rebellion a wall between them. She'd fled to Atlanta, hoping city lights would drown her guilt, but her divorce had driven her back to Willow Hollow, seeking the oak's shade and her mother's laughter in the creek song. Now, Sentinel's shadow loomed, her fear of betrayal by Wade, by her manipulated memories, clashing with a hope fueled by James's letter, by Tucker's amber eyes, by the church supper's warmth where Martha Tate and locals had shared stories of James's integrity. Nora Faith Thornton, her sister, had visited, her blue eyes bright, her pearl locket glinting, urging Emma to fight. "Dad's truth is yours, Emma. Don't let it die." Emma's gray-green eyes glistened, her calloused hands tracing the cross necklace, Nora's faith a beacon in her storm. The second USB's target list, Emma, Wade, others pointed to Wade as Sentinel's linchpin, a truth she had to confront. Emma drove to the sheriff's station, Tucker in the passenger seat, his harness jingling, his notched ear twitching. The town stirred, farmers at the market, kids with cornbread crumbs, but whispers trailed her. Emma's stirring trouble. Tucker's a risk. Lucas Grant's cautious glances at the station, his brown eyes wary, stung, but Martha's supper had softened the town's doubt, their trust a fragile bridge. Emma's badge, left at home, was a wound, her fear of losing Willow Hollow's faith warring with her need to honor James. Inside Wade's office, his stocky frame loomed, his dark brown eyes cold under his sheriff's cap, his gold watch ticking like a threat. "Thornton, you're off duty," he growled, his drawl sharp. Emma's voice was steady, her gray-green eyes blazing. "I know about Sentinel, Amos. You are running it." Wade's face hardened, his smile cold. "You're out of your depth, girl. Sentinel keeps Willow Hollow safe, hard choices for soft lives." His admission, a knife to her heart, confirmed her betrayal, not just by him, but by the town she'd sworn to protect. Emma's fear surged, her hands trembling, but James's letter, "Protect Willow Hollow," burned in her memory, her resolve afire against Wade's shadow. As she left the office, a brindle stray dog, Lily, shivered by the station's steps, her hazel eyes wary, her patchy gray-brown coat matted. Emma knelt, offering cornbread from her pocket, her heart aching as Lily's tail twitched, her soft whine mirroring Tucker's trust. Tucker nudged Lily, his amber eyes gentle, his notched ear lifting, as if welcoming her. Emma's grief for James, for her lost trust, softened, Lily's hesitant trust a mirror to her own healing, a sign to keep fighting. She took Lily home, her presence a spark of hope, a new thread in Willow Hollow's weave. Back at the station, Lucas Grant, his brown eyes now curious, approached Emma, drawn by her blog's latest post. "Sentinel's list is real. I'm not stopping." "Emma, what's going on?" he asked, his wedding band glinting. She handed him the USBs, her voice low. "Look for yourself, Lucas. Wade's betrayed us all." They viewed the files, videos, target lists, James's notes, Lucas's face paling, his hands steady on the laptop. This is real," he whispered, his trust a fragile bridge rebuilt. Outside, Martha Tate rallied locals, farmers, church ladies, kids gathering at the station, their lanterns glowing, their voices demanding answers. What's Wade hiding? Emma's blog, now viral with #HollowTruth, drew national eyes. Its comments, "Where with you, Emma?" A chorus of faith. Wade stormed out, his eyes wild, grabbing the laptop to destroy the USBs. Emma lunged, her training sharp, blocking him as Lucas restrained his arm. "It's over, Amos," she said, her voice a hymn of justice, her gray-green eyes fierce. The crowd searched, their lanterns a sea of light, their chants a thunder shaking the oaks. Emma's heart swelled, her fear of betrayal melting into hope. Willow Hollow was hers again, James's legacy alive in their trust. She posted on Lowcountry Echo Wade's exposed. Sentinels falling. For Dad. The comments flooded, James would be proud. Her resolve a beacon, Lily's soft whine at her feet a new vow. The climax roared as Emma stood outside the station, the creek song rising, the sycamores swaying under a November moon. She clutched the USBs, her cap gone, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart a storm of grief, betrayal, and hope. Tucker sat beside her, his black and tan coat glowing, his amber eyes steady, his tail thumping, Lily's hazel eyes bright at his side, their trust a living testament. Emma's pulse surged, not with doubt but with a truth breaking free that James's fight, Tucker's warning, and Willow Hollow's faith were hers to carry. She vowed to take Sentinel to the FBI, her hands steady, her gray-green eyes fixed on the horizon. The church bells tolled a hymn of justice, and the oaks whispered, promising a truth that would echo through the hollow, with Tucker and Lily leading the way. December's first frost glimmered over Willow Hollow, South Carolina. In 2024, the Lowcountry's moss-draped oaks standing like quiet sentinels, their branches etched against a sky pale as a winter hymn. The creek murmured through the cotton fields, its waters catching the dawn's silver glow, while the clabbered church's bells tolled sweet by and by, their echo weaving through the town's waking heartbeat. Emma Claire Thornton stood on the steps of the historic courthouse, her auburn hair loose beneath a green scarf, her gray-green eyes reflecting the lanterns strung across the square, their light dancing like fireflies. Her flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up despite the chill, hum over jeans dusted with red clay, her sheriff's badge back on her chest, its weight a testament to her reclaimed purpose. The silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James Earl Thornton, rested warm against her skin, a beacon of the faith she'd rediscovered in Willow Hollow's embrace. Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, sat at her side, his black and tan coat glossy, his notched ears still, his amber eyes steady, a guardian whose warnings had led her to this moment. Lily, the brindle stray she'd adopted, wagged her thin tail nearby, her hazel eyes bright, her new red-tagged collar glinting, a symbol of trust reborn. Emma's heart, once scarred by divorce and the festival incident where Tucker lunged at her, swelled with relief, gratitude, and purpose. The confrontation with Captain Amos Wade had shattered Sentinel's grip, his admission, Sentinel keeps Willow Hollow safe, a betrayal that fueled her resolve. The USB drives, one stained with Benji Cole's blood, another from the Mills ambush, had exposed Project Sentinel, a government conspiracy manipulating deputies like her with chemicals and subliminal cues. James's file box, hidden in the courthouse archive, had unveiled his fight against Sentinel, his letter, "Protect Willow Hollow, Emma, a vow she'd fulfilled." Lily's trust, mirroring Tucker's, had sparked healing, softening the grief for James's silenced death a decade ago. Her blog, Lowcountry Echo, now viral with #HollowTruth, had rallied Willow Hollow, Martha Tate's church supper, Lucas Grant's support, the crowd's lanterns, turning whispers into a chorus of faith. Where with you, Emma? Emma's attic, once a shrine to James's case files, now held hope, his fishing lures, his Bible, his letter, each item a balm for the guilt she carried since fleeing Willow Hollow at 24, her rebellion a wall between them. She'd returned at 34, post-divorce, seeking the oak's shade and her mother's laughter in the creek song, but Sentinel's shadow had nearly broken her. The mill's gunshots, the shack's syringe, Wade's cold eyes had tested her fear, but Tucker's amber gaze, Nora face calls, and the town's trust had forged her resolve. Nora, her sister, had stood by her pearl locket glinting, her blue eyes bright. Dad's proud. Emma, you've done it. Emma's gray-green eyes had glistened, her calloused hands tracing the cross necklace, Nora's faith a hymn in her heart. The FBI's investigation, launched after Emma's exposure of Sentinel, had swept through Willow Hollow like a cleansing rain. Wade was arrested, his gold watch glinting as he was led away, his cold drawl silenced. The station buzzed with relief, Lucas Grant's brown eyes now warm, his wedding band steady as he clapped Emma's shoulder. Martha Tate's diner overflowed with cornbread and chatter, locals sharing stories of James's integrity, their trust a bridge rebuilt. Emma's blog post, Sentinels Falling, for Dad, had drawn millions, hashtag Hollow Truth trending globally, comments flooding. James was a hero. Willow Hollow stands tall. The town's faith, once fractured by whispers, Emma's trouble, was now a tapestry woven with lanterns, hymns, and hope. Emma organized a candlelit vigil at the courthouse to honor James and thank Willow Hollow, the square transformed with lanterns on sycamores, tables groaning with cornbread, pecan pie, and sweet tea. The gospel choir sang Amazing Grace, their voices soaring, banjos strumming a low-country rhythm. Emma's heart swelled, her fear of betrayal, by Wade, by Sentinel, by her own memories, melting into gratitude for Tucker's warnings, Lily's trust, and the town's embrace. Martha bustled, her gray braids swinging, her brown eyes bright, directing volunteers. Nora arrived, her cardigan fluttering, her smile wide, hugging Emma tight. Locals gathered, farmers in flannel, church ladies in shawls, kids with chalk signs, for James. Their faces glowing under lantern light, their chatter a hymn of belonging. Strangers from Charleston, drawn by hashtag Hollow Truth, joined, their comments echoing, "This is what truth builds." Emma stepped onto a makeshift stage, her sheriff's badge glinting, her gray-green eyes shining, the cross necklace a vow. "Tucker and Dad taught me truth is worth fighting for," she said, her voice steady, cracking only once, tears pricking her eyes. "Willow Hollow, you're my home, my strength." Tucker sat beside her, his notched ear lifting, his tail thumping, Lily wagging nearby, their trust a living testament. The crowd roared, standing, clapping, their cheers a thunder shaking the oaks, lanterns swaying like stars. Martha raised a cornbread basket, Nora's eyes welled. Locals sang sweet by and by, their voices a river of hope. Emma's heart pounded, her gratitude afire, the creek sung a hymn of triumph. A YouTube video, uploaded anonymously, captured the vigil, its narrator's drawl warm. In Willow Hollow, a woman and her dog unveiled a truth that saved a town. Share if truth lights your way. Comment, amen, and subscribe. It soared, hashtag Hollow Truth trending globally, comments flooding. Amen, Emma. This is justice. The video inspired exposés nationwide, Sentinel's tendrils unraveling under scrutiny. Emma posted on Lowcountry Echo, "Tucker led us to truth. Willow Hollow endures." The comments, "You're our hero." Were a balm, her purpose clear, to protect her town, to honor James, to nurture Lily's trust. At home, Emma trained Lily, her hazel eyes growing bold, her brindle coat gleaming under care. Tucker rested beside her, his amber eyes soft, his notched ear twitching, his strength a quiet anchor. Emma's fear of Sentinel's shadow lingered, but her gratitude for Tucker's warnings, Lily's trust, the town's faith outshone it. She walked the creek's banks, the sycamores swaying, the church bells tolling, her heart full of James's letter, her mother's laughter, her own reclaimed light. Willow Hollow was hers, its oaks her roots, its hymns her strength. The climax surged as Emma stood at the vigil's close, the courthouse square aglow, the sycamores whispering under a December moon. She clutched James's letter, her gray-green eyes shining, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart a symphony of relief, gratitude, and purpose. Tucker sat beside her, his black and tan coat radiant, his amber eyes steady, Lily's hazel eyes bright, their trust a vow eternal. Emma's pulse roared, not with fear but with a truth made real, that James's legacy, Tucker's courage, and Willow Hollow's unity were hers to carry forward. She lit a lantern, its glow joining hundreds, the crowd singing Amazing Grace, their voices a chorus of forever. The church bells tolled, the oaks moss danced, and Emma vowed to protect Willow Hollow, her sheriff's badge a beacon, her heart full of echoes that would never fade. Christmas Eve's twilight draped Willow Hollow, South Carolina. In 2024, the Low Country's moss-draped oaks shimmering with frost, their branches weaving a silver tapestry against a sky thick with stars. The creek murmured through the cotton fields, its waters catching the moon's glow like a whispered hymn, while the clabbered church's bells tolled silent night, their echo a gentle pulse in the town's quiet heart. Emma Claire Thornton stood on her porch, her auburn hair loose beneath a green scarf, her gray-green eyes reflecting the lanterns strung across her clapboard house, their light dancing like fireflies. Her sheriff's badge gleamed on her khaki uniform, reclaimed after months of doubt, its weight a testament to her triumph. The silver cross necklace, a gift from her late father, James Earl Thornton, rested warm against her chest, a beacon of faith rekindled in Willow Hollow's embrace. Tucker, her 6-year-old German Shepherd K9, sat beside her, his black and tan coat faded slightly with age, his notched ears still, his amber eyes dim but unwavering, a guardian whose warnings had saved her. Lily, the brindle stray she'd adopted, wagged her thin tail, her hazel eyes bright under a red-tagged collar, her trust a new light in Emma's world. Emma's heart, once scarred by divorce and the festival incident where Tucker lunged at her, swelled with grief, gratitude, and purpose. The vigil at the courthouse had sealed Sentinel's fall, Captain Amos Wade's arrest a victory for truth, the USB drives, stained with Benji Cole's blood, etched with James's notes, unveiling a government conspiracy that manipulated her with chemicals and cues. James's letter, Protect Willow Hollow, Emma had guided her through mill ambushes, syringe attacks, and Wade's betrayal, his legacy of fire in her soul. Lily's trust, mirroring Tucker's, had healed the guilt she'd carried since fleeing Willow Hollow at 24, her rebellion a wall between her and James's unsolved death. Her blog, Low Country Echo, now a global beacon with #HollowTruth, had rallied Willow Hollow, Martha Tate's cornbread, Lucas Grant's support, the crowd's lanterns, turning whispers into a symphony of faith. You're our hero, Emma. Emma's attic, once a shrine to James's case files, now held hope, his fishing lures, his Bible, a photo of them by the creek, his brown eyes kind but fierce. She'd returned at 34, post-divorce, seeking the oak's shade and her mother's laughter, but Sentinel's shadow had nearly broken her. Tucker's lunge, Wade's cold orders, the note's riddle, you don't know who you are, had tested her fear, but Nora Faye's calls, Martha's supper, and Lily's soft wine had forged her resolve. The FBI's sweep, sparked by her blog, had uprooted Sentinel's tendrils, its exposés rippling nationwide, #HollowTruth, a cry for justice. Emma's heart ached for James, for Benji, for the trust she'd nearly lost, but gratitude for Tucker's warnings, Lily's trust, Willow Hollow's faith outshone her grief, her purpose clear, to protect her town, to honor her father, to carry their light forward. That evening, Tucker stirred, his harness jingling, his amber eyes fixed on the riverside oak by the creek where Emma, as a child, had fished with James, his stories of justice filling the air. Her heart tightened, sensing Tucker's call, his steps slower, his breaths heavier, a shadow she'd feared since the mill. She draped a quilt, her mother's, from the attic over her shoulders, grabbed a lantern, and followed, Lily trotting beside, her brindle coat glinting, her hazel eyes curious. The oak loomed, its moss swaying, the creek sung a lullaby under a starlit sky. Tucker paused, his notched ear lifting, his tail thumping once, his amber eyes meeting Emma's, soft but certain. She knelt, her hands trembling, the lantern casting a golden glow over his fading coat. "You brought me home. Boy," she whispered, her voice breaking, tears streaming down her cheeks. Tucker whined, nudging her hand, his breath slowing, his spirit slipping into the night, peaceful under the sycamore's watch. Emma held him, the quilt warm, Lily's soft whine a quiet echo, as if mourning a hero. The silence was sacred, the church bells still, the frost a gentle shroud. Emma buried Tucker by the oak, her hands digging into the cold clay, the lantern flickering. She placed his badge tag, a photo of them at the festival, a syringe from the shack, emptied of its poison, and a letter, "You saved me," Tucker beside him, their trust eternal. Lily sat vigil, her hazel eyes mournful, her brindle for brushing Emma's arm, a new guardian of the hollow's light. Emma smoothed the earth, her tears falling, her heart full not of loss, but of love that would never fade. The courthouse square glowed that night, transformed for a second vigil to honor Tucker and James. Emma stood before a sea of lanterns. Locals gathered, Martha in her sun hat, Lucas in his uniform, Nora with her locket glinting, farmers, church ladies, kids with chalk signs, Tucker's truth. The gospel choir sang Amazing Grace, their voices soaring, banjos strumming a low-country rhythm. Emma's sheriff's badge gleamed, her gray-green eyes shining, her voice steady. "Tucker's truth lives in us," she said, cracking only once, tears tracing her cheeks. "He led me to Dad, to you, to justice. This hollow's ours to protect." Lily wagged beside her, her red tag glinting, her trust a testament to healing. The crowd roared, standing, clapping, their cheers a thunder shaking the oaks, lanterns swaying like stars. Martha raised a cornbread basket, Nora hugged Emma, locals wept, their voices a river of hope. Emma posted a final low-country echo entry, "Tucker's gone, but his light endures." For Willow Hollow. Comments flooded, "Amen, Emma. Tucker's a hero." From locals to strangers, their stories weaving a tapestry of truth. A YouTube video, narrated in a warm drawl, captured the journey festival to oak, betrayal to vigil, ending. Sheriff Truth guides you home. Comment, "Amen," and subscribe. It reached millions, #HollowTruth a global cry, comments echoing, "Amen, Willow Hollow." Emma stood under the sycamores, Lily's fur warm against her leg, the courthouse aglow, James's letter in her heart. Her fear of Sentinel's shadow was gone, her gratitude for Tucker, Lily, the town, a fire eternal. The climax surged as Emma lit a final lantern, its glow joining thousands, the sycamores swaying under a Christmas moon. She clutched the letter, her gray-green eyes radiant, tears streaming, her heart a symphony of grief, gratitude, and purpose. Lily wagged, her brindle coat bright. The crowd sang Silent Night, their voices a chorus of forever. Emma's pulse roared, her sheriff's badge a vow, her resolve a beacon, that James's legacy, Tucker's courage, and Willow Hollow's faith would endure. The church bells tolled, the oaks whispered, and Tucker's legacy burned bright, an echo of the hollow that would never fade, guiding Emma home forever.